Good evening, folks. My name is Simon Sun. I'm with HDR. I'm actually just hijacked the screen here a moment ago, and I just want to make sure that I have the ability to share screen and that everybody can see before we get going. So, if that's okay, everybody, you mind if I just flash up on the screen again, and can I get a confirmation from the city just to make sure that I have everything working?
Yes.
Can you see a cover slide for a presentation?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. I will stop sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, it's 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Pacific for our councilman in San Diego. Gardner, Kansas, I will call the Gardner City Council to order. Will you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I have a proclamation to read, so I'm going to go over here. And since they want me to speak into the microphone, I'm going to turn the microphone on. Down. Oh, Sam, oh, that's that'll just kind of whip around on it. Okay. Well, this proclamation is meant to, I think this is off, actually. Oh, you have to hold the button. Okay. There you go. All right, so this proclamation is to proclaim the week of March 7th through March 13th, next week, as Heroes Week in the city of Gardner to commemorate the fine and noble work of our first responders, police department, fire, EMS, and others that keep us safe. Whereas the city of Gardner, like other communities across this great nation, has dealt with and continues to endure the impact of COVID-19, and whereas many of us have either been infected or known someone who has been infected by COVID-19, and whereas individuals, corporations, and organizations have provided humanitarian assistance to ease the pain and burden of people and families due to COVID-19, including staffing, drive-through food banks, rent and mortgage assistance, aiding their neighbors, and more. And whereas healthcare professionals, educators, grocery store employees, restaurant staff, delivery drivers, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, public works, parks and recreation and community service public servants, and so many others have worked continuously and have taken extraordinary steps to ensure the health and safety of the entire community and provide essential services. And whereas our community is built upon those who have made this city resilient. And whereas I wish I could personally meet and greet each and every one of you and express my appreciation to those who have made such a positive impact on the city of Gardner during this historic pandemic. Now therefore be resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of March 7th through the 13th, 2021 as Heroes Week in the City of Gardner, and urge all citizens to take time and thank those for their selfless commitment and determination to comfort, serve, and ensure our well-being. And when we talk about essential people, everybody's essential obviously, but the folks that are really putting their lives on the line and working for us every day, that includes all of our folks that work in the grocery stores, as well as our first responders, as well as our teachers, the individuals who are out there in the community helping to serve everyone in this time of the pandemic. This is absolutely justified and deserved, and we will encourage all of you to go out there and thank those essential workers for the price that they're paying in a lot of cases to get us what we need to continue in the city of Gardner. I'm going to hand this over to City Clerk and to Jim Belcher, our Chief of Police. All right. So the next presentation is a presentation on the I-35 and Gardner Road interchange project. We're going to be listening to our Chief Engineer, Tim McEldowney, and I believe we also have Simon Sun from KDOT on the line. So please take it away, Tim.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. So we have an update on the ultimate interchange improvements that are to be done at I-35 and Gardner Road. And just before we get into that, I wanted to just give a real brief history kind of on how we got to where we're at today. You may recall back in 2016, we applied to Mid-America Regional Council for funds to basically improve the north side of that interchange where 191st Street connects adjacent to the ramp terminals. There we had a lot of congestion, and we were awarded $1.4 million from MARC to go towards that project. So before we got into the design of that actual project, we needed to go and do an alternative analysis and look at, okay, what do we need for the future interchange? And at that time, we looked at many different alternatives for the ultimate improvements. And at the end of the day, we all agreed that diverging diamond interchange would be the appropriate solution for our traffic issues and to fix the problems we have down at that location. So then we went back and basically went into the design of what we call phase one of the project. And phase one is what you currently see being worked on today, which basically relocates 191st Street to the north to intersect Gardner Road at 188th Street. It also adds signals at 188th Street, and there will be signals at each of the ramp intersections with Gardner Road. And also around that time, KDOT came up with an additional $2.51 million to go towards the construction of that current project. So I think that kind of, in a nutshell, brings us up to date. And at this point, I'll just turn it over to KDOT and their folks to give an update on the interchange and where it stands today. So we have Steve Bass from KDOT and Simon Sun from HDR, their consultant. And Steve, I'll leave it up to you. I know there's some other folks too from KDOT. If you wouldn't mind introducing them as well, we'll let you guys go.
All right, thank you, Tim. Before I get started, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, like Tim said, my name's Steve Bass. I'm the project manager, KDOT Road Design. And we also have Simon Sun, who's with HDR. He's the project manager on the consultant side, leading the design effort on the project. We also have others from KDOT here in the meeting. Forgive me if I missed somebody. I'm just going to kind of go off the list. I think I have Kelly Kotola, who is on the public involvement side of the project for District 1. We have Sean Schwenson, who is the KDOT Bridge Design project manager. We have Steve Hale, who's the director of communications. Is that right, Steve? Okay. We also have Leroy Kane, who is the District 1 engineer for KDOT. We have Eslam Elatar, who is one of the designers in my squad. And I don't see Michael Reinhardt. Could he make it today, Leroy?
I'm on.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're showing up as Brooke?
I am, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have Michael Reinhardt, who is the Metro engineer, KDOT Metro engineer in Olathe. So with that, Simon, if you could go ahead and show the PowerPoint presentation. Now, as Tim mentioned earlier, he asked us to come update the City Council kind of on the status of the project, and would like to thank you all for inviting us to share this information with you tonight. I guess we'll go ahead and start on the next slide, Simon. There we go. I believe everyone's seen a copy of this PowerPoint presentation prior to tonight's meeting, but this is won't be going over the PowerPoint today, or tonight, sorry. First, I'll be going over some of the background information on the project. Then we'll get into project schedule discussions. Then I'll turn it over to Simon and let him walk you through some of the design details. And then we'll wrap it up by showing some of the project estimates that we have on the project. So as Tim mentioned, this project is located at the I-35 Gardner Road interchange. The existing Gardner Road bridge over I-35 was constructed back in 1959. As you know, currently it has 2 lanes with no shoulders. And KDOT had replaced the bridge rail and performed deck repairs back in 2008. And so based on the condition of the bridge today, we feel that, either some pretty major repairs would be needed or a bridge replacement would be needed. So the existing Gardner Road interchange itself was built in 1959. Currently, there are no turn lanes on the ramps or on Gardner Road. The existing interchange is experiencing backup and congestion during the rush hours, particularly the southbound I-35 to northbound Gardner Road movement, as well as the southbound Gardner Road to northbound I-35 movement. And HDR's traffic analysis confirms this congestion. I'm sure everyone's experienced some congestion out there with that 2-lane bridge and with the amount of development in the area. So that's why we're looking at different alternatives for the interchange. Next slide. Okay. As Tim mentioned, Tim kind of touched on some of this already, but KDOT agreed to participate in the preliminary engineering in late 2018. As Tim mentioned, the city applied for MARC funding to replace this bridge. Currently, MARC awarded $6 million towards construction of the interchange. And here in early 2019, HDR was selected to perform the design of the interchange. So next slide, Simon. So now I'd like to just go over the project schedule as it stands right now. So during the study, HDR looked at a number of diverging diamond alternatives. Hopefully everyone knows what a diverging diamond interchange is. To put it in perspective, it's what's down there at I-35 and Homestead Lane. Based on the amount of the traffic now, and also considering the future development, the project team believes that DDI would be the best solution at this location. Also, the bridge condition suggests that bridge would need either a major rehab or replacement. Because of the cost of the new DDI, as was looked at by HDR, KDOT also looked closely at other interim alternatives. We started out looking at an interim DDI configuration that would also be compatible with the ultimate DDI interchange. But when we presented some of that information to the city here, been a few months back, there were some concerns about the project cost. And so then KDOT went back with the help of HDR and analyzed various interchange options where we were looking at reducing the construction costs even more. And then here more recently, we even looked at an interim diamond configuration, diamond interchange, instead of an interim DDI. And we'll kind of go over some of those details a little bit later when Simon starts to discuss the more details of the project itself. But here more recently, I think back in, it was November of 2020, KDOT executive staff approved an interim bridge preservation project to replace the existing bridge with a diamond interchange that is compatible with the ultimate interchange configuration, which is the ultimate DDI configuration. So right now, we're currently in the preliminary design phase as shown in blue there. We started kind of some initial preliminary design back in October and hope to wrap up some of the preliminary design later this year. So right now, like I said, we're full steam ahead on the design effort. And then also, as part of the design effort, we're also looking at the ultimate, so really we're designing the ultimate interchange configuration as well as the interim. The reason we're designing the ultimate interchange configuration is because we are looking at preserving the right-of-way for the ultimate project. There's been lots of development out there and more coming, and we're just trying to preserve the right-of-way so that sometime in the future, when we do construct the ultimate diverging diamond, we already have the right-of-way acquired for that. Looking back up on the schedule then, right-of-way acquisition, KDOT hopes to start that acquisition sometime late this year. and then also HDR will start working on their final design of the project. We're looking at utility relocations starting roughly November of 2022, and right now KDOT has assigned a letting date of September of 2023 for this project. So let's see. So now I will turn it over to Simon so he can kind of go over some of the more detailed information as far as the alternatives that we're looking at right now.
Great, thanks, Steve. So what's on the screen right now, as Steve has mentioned, there are a interim configuration or interim improvement projects that we're looking at, and that is in the form of a bridge replacement project. That's kind of similar to what the configuration looks like today, which is more of a diamond interchange. So what you see on the screen here is a picture of the interim improvements. You can, some of the key design considerations, Tim has already mentioned the congestions at the ramp terminals. City has also expressed, pedestrian accommodations through the interchange is going to be an important consideration, and that kind of the future bridge or whatever the future improvement would be must accommodate pedestrian accommodation. So that's something that we heard loud and clear. Of course, Tim mentioned phase one of the project is the realignment of 191st Street on the north side of I-35, or i.e. what's kind of shown there in purple lines there. That's the city's Locust Street realignment project. So, it's important for this interchange project that ties into that as well. There is a lot of coordination per se with the city staff in terms of some of the development that's going in there, with Quick Trip being one of the key considerations here more recently for us. Talking about compatibility, it's also important to think about, how this interchange could fit into a more ultimate design, as Steve has mentioned, an ultimate interchange configurations. And of course, take that a step further. We all know traffic here on I-35 has only increased in the past, and will continue to do so. So a possibility of accommodating a future expansion of I-35 into an 8 lanes, just thinking ahead a little bit, and kind of, future proofing a little bit. And of course, the last thing on here is the construction traffic impact. Anytime you have a construction project, especially with Gardner Road being kind of the southern access to the interstate for the city, how do we minimize the traffic impact as the interchange is being implemented? So those are the key considerations. So, what you see on the screen, some of the key features per se, to adjust the near-term congestion relief, we're looking at widening of the off-ramp on southbound I-35. Existing is 1 lane. We're currently looking at widening the 2 lanes, because we feel like having 2 lanes is going to allow, at least facilitate some movements here off the interchange, and that in conjunction with some of the other things that we're doing, such as adding turn lanes on Gardner Road. So the existing bridge, as we have mentioned earlier, is a 2-lane facility. This proposed bridge that we're going in is actually going to be 4 lanes wide. What that would allow us to do is to accommodate additional turn lanes on the southbound Gardner Road direction to kind of help, facilitate traffic movements, during the peak hour. Also on this bridge, it has accommodation for I guess what I call a widened sidewalk section per se, that will, with the sidewalk continuing to the north and south, or at least within the footprint of what's shown on the screen. Now, I know you're interested in seeing perhaps some details, and I've got some PDFs here that we can certainly bring up on the screen here to get into a little more zoom in view if you like. But, for the time being, I'm just going to keep going. And the last point I want to make on this, as far as the key feature, is that the new structure, the new bridge, is constructed on an offset from the existing alignment, you may notice. So, if I guess what I could call, as you're looking at it, there's a wiggle in the alignment per se. So the purpose of that is twofold. Number one, it allows us to reuse the bridge in the ultimate configuration, which I'll bring up here on the screen shortly. Another advantage of doing that per se is that the new bridge can be constructed next to the existing, while existing traffic can be maintained on the existing structure. So, while certainly I'm not going to sit here and say that traffic will not be impacted, but hopefully with building the bridge on an offset, it would allow perhaps some minimization of traffic impact during construction. We'll move on now to kind of the ultimate. So the ultimate interchange configuration, as Steve has mentioned, is kind of looking really long term, right? So while the interim improvements will perhaps, the traffic projection is showing that it would remain a decent level of service or will operate through pretty well through 2035. This option on the screen here will allow us to look at something even further, even longer term. So, knowing all the development in the region, it is certainly within reasons to think about what this area could look like. So we feel like the ultimate DDI configuration is something that would help with the long-term congestion relief. Kind of think about key consideration, as I mentioned, long-term congestion relief. Pedestrian accommodation is something that will definitely maintain or continue forward from the interim configuration to the ultimate. I kind of talked a little earlier about compatibility of the bridge. If you're going to spend that much money building a bridge, we want to make sure that there's a plan forward to make sure this fits in with kind of the ultimate vision of this area. And then of course, whatever we do, we still have to maintain compatibility with the Locust Street improvement or 191st Street realignment that we talked about earlier. So the purple lines on the screen here kind of gives you an indication of perhaps where the project improvement would be in black and how it ties into the Locust Street improvement in the future. So, key design feature, I'm not gonna repeat it. I think I kind of jumped the gun a little bit and kind of spew out all the good stuff, but it's going to be at this diverging diamond. It's going to have to allow us to reuse the bridge. And then also really the last thing is, similar to the interim, we also got to think about how this configuration would allow us to minimize traffic impact during construction. So in this case, you can see that on the figure there's a fatter bridge, if you will, a wider bridge, and then a narrower bridge. So the narrower bridge is built on an offset alignment as well from the first bridge. So kind of similar benefit. It'll allow you to build that bridge on an offset alignment while traffic is on the I guess pseudo old stuff from the interim project, if you will. But this will further at least have some consideration to minimize traffic disruption while this interchange is being upgraded in the future from a diamond to an ultimate DDI. So those are some of the key highlights. Let's skip over a little bit to turn the floor back over to Steve to talk about project costs. And if you have any questions and want to see some details, we can certainly dive into it. So Steve.
Okay, thanks, Simon. And I apologize, everyone. I don't know if everyone else is seeing the same thing I am, but kind of the top of my screen is flickering a little bit, so I apologize if we're having some technical difficulties here. But anyway, talking about project costs right now. First, I'd like to just focus on the interim Diamond Interchange Bridge Preservation Project. Tim, I think in the past we've shared some numbers with you, and those were the numbers we shared with you were in a different fiscal year, so we've inflated those to correspond with KDOT's fiscal year 2024, which is, like I mentioned earlier, kind of a fall of 2023 letting. So as shown here, construction costs of the Diamond Interchange or interim Diamond Interchange is $12 million. We've kind of estimated preliminary engineering and construction engineering is $1.2 million. The right-of-way, which would be the right-of-way the cost of the right-of-way that we would need to preserve the right-of-way for the ultimate design is $0.8 million. And then utility relocations, that was kind of it was an unknown really at this time. We've got a lot of utilities in the area. We've got some gas lines in the area, which gas lines in the past have always been a high cost utility. And so those are just kind of our kind of ballpark numbers right now. And even with the interim project, it's possible that we may not have to move move some utilities right now. So those will kind of be refined once we get a little bit further into the design effort. So with all that being said, for the interim project, we'd be looking at a total, including construction, PEC, right-of-way, and utilities, of $17.2 million. So with the ultimate interchange configuration, as Simon just showed you, the full build out of the DDI, we're looking at a construction cost of $31.3 million. Again, there's the cost shown for preliminary engineering, construction engineering, right-of-way and utility costs. We just use the same numbers as the interim. And so that total would be $40.3 million for the ultimate interchange configuration. So Simon, next slide, please. All right. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we're designing the ultimate interchange so that we can preserve the right-of-way, but more short-term, we are looking to construct the interim Diamond Interchange Bridge Preservation Project here in late 2023, or let the project in late 2023. So again, there's a construction cost, $12 million, and then those are all the numbers that you had seen on the previous slide. But one of the things I want to point out on the funding source is for the construction cost, kind of as was discussed earlier, Mark had, the city applied for some funding through Mark, and they were awarded $6 million. And then I believe there was a $1.5 million match by the city. So there's $7.5 million. And then what KDOT, and so based on the cost of the project, $12 million is, obviously quite a bit higher than the $7.5 million that you all secured for funding. And so KDOT talked internally, and we noted that, KDOT would be willing to fund the remaining construction cost for this bridge, which would equate to about $4.5 million. As far as the preliminary engineering effort goes, there was a meeting held, I think it was back in 2018, where the city would be responsible for 10% of the PE costs, and then KDOT would be responsible for 90% of the PE costs. And then construction engineering, KDOT would be responsible for that. And then right now, the city is responsible for right-of-way and utility relocation costs. So you can see kind of down there at the bottom, we put together the total cost, obviously the $6 million in Mark funding, and then adding up some of the other costs from above, there's $4.4 million city, and then KDOT would be responsible for $6.78 million, which would be construction cost and the 90% of the preliminary engineering and construction engineering, sorry. So with that, that's what we have for the project. So I guess now we'd like to just open it up for questions.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate your presentation. I'm going to open it up also basically to the council and see if they have questions. I have a couple, but you might ask mine. So, Councilman Gargorsek, you want to start off?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. For me, I just want to make sure that Phillips 66, which has been a long-standing patron to the city of Gardner, and I know of at least its second ownership as well as its first ownership. So I just want to make sure that the Gardner Road access internally, I'm sorry to digress, but internally we've already handled kind of the western entry to that site through the relocation of locusts, etc. But I'm just concerned about the entry on the southbound lane on the, I guess that would be the east side off of Gardner Road, as to what medians are going to dissuade patrons from being able to enter that site.
Okay, Simon, do you want to pull one of those displays up? I think it would be best to talk off of that.
All right, so I'm going to zoom in. parcel in question is this property right here on the west side, basically that first driveway, correct? Or the first
Correct.
property.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the one that I'm speaking of, Simon, is the one that's hatched. Yeah.
Yeah. So Simon, do you want me to take this and then chime in if you have anything else to add?
Sounds
So,
good.
you know, we were considering these entrances that were fairly close to the interchange, and you know, looking at the amount of traffic that we have going along Gardner Road, and trying to maintain the integrity of the interchange. Obviously, we like to, and then KDOT has some corridor management spacing policy in place, but obviously we like to keep entrances as far back from the interchange as possible, like I said, so it doesn't affect the integrity of the interchange. And with this project, I think we're proposing to close that access off of Gardner Road. So Simon, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, and I think what Steve said is right on. I think the other part of the question is what type of median is going to be placed along Gardner Road. So so similar to what Steve has said about protecting the integrity of the interchange in terms of facilitating traffic off of the I-35 traffic. As we know, there's a lot of people coming off of I-35 and want to make a right, kind of head into the city, and perhaps head to the elements on the west side of Gardner Road here. Unfortunately, any kind of breaks, median breaks per se, along this route would definitely present some challenges from a traffic operations perspective. So, long-winded answer, I apologize, is that there will be a median, a raised median, at least for the interim configuration that you see here. You can see this island here in black. Basically, it's going to be prohibiting, any kind of turning movements until you get up to 181st Street, 188th. I'm so sorry, 188th Street. So this is the way that we need to preserve the operations, because, like I said, there's also some safety concerns with if you have people trying to make left turns and things like that, to conflicting movements and things like that would pose a challenge. Maybe I will go ahead and flash out what the ultimate configurations. Perhaps it will shed a little more light into what we're talking about here. So let's get oriented here. We'll click 188th Street intersection right here. So this is the ultimate DDI. You can kind of see the reason we have to close the driveway at the interim configuration is that ultimately in the future there's going to be some widening here to accommodate some of the turn lanes and things of that nature. So the median here is going to be closed off, similar to what's happening during the interim. And like I said, the reason for that is that with the traffic growth that's expected between 188, all the way south through the interchange, just from a traffic operation perspective, that needs to happen, or there could be some potential safety concerns if we leave that open. So I'll pause there. And Steve, you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Simon, back on the interim, if you could flip back to that real quick. I don't know if you mentioned that, Simon, but I think we're looking at still placing signals at the ramp terminal, correct?
Yes, there will be traffic signals at both ramp terminals.
Okay, just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your explanation. So just to be clear, we're going to close off that existing entrance off of Gardner Road to that site, and the only entrance that business owner would have is on the west side or the Locust side. Is that correct?
Yes, it will be this driveway, just based on what I've seen from the Locust Street plans.
Okay. And as for your safety, I mean, we have great safety issues currently with 191st and LPKC traffic turning in off of southbound I-35 onto Gardner Road and making a left-hand turn. So I can empathize with your concern for safety, and I still support the idea of putting some sort of temporary balusters or something to impede traffic making a left-hand turn onto 191st. But it's just hard for me to swallow that although this improvement is timely and much needed, it's just hard to see that we're going to close off an entrance off of a main road, even for the southbound traffic off of Gardner Road, to enter and get fuel and snacks and so forth. So, but nonetheless, I appreciate y'all's explanation.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, anyone else? Yes, Council President.
On the financing, on the numbers that you put up there, this would be roughly 3 years in the future. Are those, is that present day money? Is any inflation accounted for in those numbers? 2024?
Yeah. So,
Yes.
Simon, can you go back to that slide real quick? And
Working on it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So the funding. So HDR on their estimate, they used current construction dollars, and then we do. KDOT has an inflation rate that we apply to projects that goes from fiscal year to fiscal year. So those project costs are inflated out to fiscal year 2024 or construction years late 2023.
Okay,
So
thank
yes.
Councilman.
As far as the ultimate, I can appreciate signing for the ultimate. That makes perfect sense. I'm just curious, and this is early, but with the percentages where the city's responsible for 10% of preliminary engineering, basically 12.5% of construction costs. For the ultimate, will it still be that similar ratio? Is that projected that way?
Simon, did you catch that question? I was having a really hard time hearing that.
Yes, we can.
I want what I thought I heard was the ratio for the interim is shown on the screen here. I think was the question would the ratio for the ultimate still apply? So was that, did I get the gist of the question?
Yeah, so for the interim, the city's paying 10% of the preliminary engineering and approximately 12.5% of construction costs. And I'm wondering if that will hopefully and most likely hold true for the ultimate. So the city will be on the hook for another 2.66 million for the construction costs and another 190K for the preliminary engineering when we do the ultimate.
So the concern or the question is what city's response? I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I apologize. What would be the city's responsibility in terms of participation in the future when this future interchange is constructed?
Correct.
Okay, Steve, you wanna? I think that I got a concurrence on the capturing of the question.
So I guess just to confirm, so the big question is, what's the city's responsibility in the future?
Yes.
Okay. So right now, for the future project or the ultimate interchange improvement project, I don't think that we've identified who's responsible for what at this time. Right now, we have KDOT has a local consult in place. So, if this project is of interest to the city and they want to see, a regional interest, we encourage the city and others to bring this project to the local consult and, get it in the project development pipeline. And really, I guess that's kind of the steps at least we're following right now with projects. But, as Simon mentioned earlier, this project, the ultimate won't be needed for quite some time. And so it's my guess that, funding will be discussed probably in a little bit later in the future as we see the need to go with the ultimate DDI configuration.
Anything else? Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Councilman? Nothing? Councilwoman?
I don't really have a question. I just would kind of agree with Randy about blocking the driveway for Phillips 66. Like, it concerns me there's not a good way to get to their business. But I mean, I understand one way to do it, but it still concerns me.
Okay, thank you. The questions I had actually weren't asked. It's kind of interesting. So I'm looking at the interim improvement, and I see the relocation of the ramp, and that's great. I'm a little concerned about the time frame. 2024 is a significant amount of time. You're talking 3 years out. I don't know if any of you or anybody in the regional group has gone out to take a look at the Gardner Road Bridge as it currently is situated, or how the current condition of the bridge. It's significantly degrading. It's degraded quite a bit even in the last 2 years with the additional truck traffic that's gone across it. I'm a little concerned that without some interim steps taken by KDOT, that there may be some even accelerated degradation on that particular bridge. Have any of you taken a look at it lately?
I hate to put you on the spot, Michael Reinhardt, but if you could chime in and provide a response to that, that'd be great.
Sure. The answer is yes, I've been on it, and we're well aware of its condition. We're in that situation with all sorts of bridges in Kansas. It's just the natural decline that you would expect on any bridge. It starts out new and gets to the point where it needs to have some investment dollars into it. So to bridge that gap from where we're at today to where we need to be in 2024 and get a replaced bridge, this summer we intend to be out there in July with our maintenance forces to get some of that deck repaired. The thought being that the Locust Street project is going to necessitate a short period of closure of that bridge. And due to that closure, we thought that would be the prime opportunity for us to sneak in there and get the deck in better shape. Now, that's not going to guarantee that after we make our repairs that there won't be other instances of the deck delaminating more and more surface issues arising, but it does provide us an opportunity to get the rough spots taken care of that are known and are present at this point in time. And if we have to revisit being out there again, we'll do that as needed.
Is there anything that I'm looking at the time frame here? I knew you were probably going to get this. I knew that you knew that you were probably going to get this question. But I'm looking at the project schedule, and I see, utility relocation taking a year, and I understand that with the gas line. I think the Southern Star pipeline is the one you're most concerned about. With advertisement and letting of the actual construction taking place almost at the very end of that utility relocation, is there any wiggle room from the standpoint of KDOT to accelerate that timeline at all?
Well, I think that's one of the things that we looked at when putting the schedule together. They've condensed the design effort pretty tight, and so really what's driving this schedule is after we get to about plans 50% complete is the right-of-way acquisition and utility relocations. Obviously with utility relocations, many times they want the KDOT to acquire the right-of-way so that then they can move, after that time, as the right-of-way is getting cleared, then they can move. So, and in this case, you know, it's some utilities, if they have to move, they might consider just moving out to the ultimate location, so they don't have to move twice.
Correct.
You know, now, and then when we come back in the future and do the ultimate interchange configuration design or the ultimate DDI. So, you know, even with the right-of-way and utility relocations, the schedules that we have shown there are pretty aggressive for them also. You know, a lot of times right-of-way acquisition usually takes anywhere between 18 months to 2 years. And so we've condensed that down to around a year. And so we're eating up some of their time too. So I think to accelerate this schedule, it would be very difficult.
Sure, I understand that and appreciate it. I just know that from the standpoint of safety right now, that's a significant issue all the way around. And traffic's only going to increase in that area in the next 2 years. And so I don't know if there's a possibility that we could do things like signalization or anything like that in the interim, like a temporary signal on those 2 ramps, so that at least we can have people, you know, maybe govern the traffic flow a little bit better as it currently stands, because as I said, that traffic's only going to increase over the next 2 years, and waiting till 2024 to get any kind of improvements on that bridge other than resurfacing might create problems.
Now,
Yeah,
Simon, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think Tim is
Yeah,
about
that's
to say
fine.
the same
Excuse
thing.
me. This is Councilman Gargorsek. I just want to piggyback on what the mayor spoke about. And I don't know if we've done traffic studies at the 191st and Gardner Road interchange. And this is back of the napkin math, because I've not performed any studies. But I would say a bulk or a high percentage of the traffic that we see is coming or going to LPKC. And they're a great neighbor to us, as well as the city of Edgerton. But in my mind, if we throttled the entry exit of that traffic, that would push traffic further south to the diverging diamond that was built for LPKC and the truck traffic. That's, again, I've been a proponent for that, you know, to throttle that traffic, which may provide some amount of extra time to the bridge deck itself, but I'm not a professional when it comes to that. Any thoughts?
Well, I think there have been some discussions. When and this is just what I've heard. I haven't experienced it firsthand, but what I'm told is that when truck drivers, a lot of the trucks coming to and from the intermodal and the surrounding areas, come from the north, and then when they leave, they go back towards North I-35. And what I've been told is when the trucks type in, like the address of the intermodal or a warehouse or something, it's giving them the shortest route, which it's having them get off at Gardner Road, and then they're accessing that area via the Gardner Road interchange. I don't know for sure if KDOT's reached out to some of these different mapping places to have them rerouted. I don't know that for sure. I don't know, Michael or Leroy, do you guys know any more about trying to get trucks to utilize the Homestead Lane interchange rather than the Gardner Road interchange?
Well, can I interject for a moment here? It would be an immense help to, and I think we've seen a lot less truck traffic coming through there since you guys put that the rotating lit sign on the road because of the 199th Street reconstruction, to tell the trucks to go down to exit 205 for the intermodal. I mean, is there any possibility that we could have some signage on southbound I-35 that directs trucks to exit 205? That would be a big help, and it would keep those folks from just being slaves to their GPS, and it would give them directional help to get down to the interchange that actually was created for the intermodal.
So we do have the changeable message board posted on southbound I-35, directing folks that are headed to the intermodal facility to go to 205. That's one of our KDOT message boards that we're willing to keep posted there for a reasonable period of time. And if it needs to be there all the way until the new interchange, then so be it.
That would be a huge help, and it has actually helped keep the truck
That's
traffic.
one thing that I haven't heard back is if it was making a difference. I had a contact with the police department that I had asked to get back with me, and I have not heard back yet. So it's good to hear from you that that's having some impact.
I'm seeing less trucks making that ramp, but we are seeing trucks still, but a lot of them are going to Phillips 66. Yes, Chief?
Hey, this is Chief Belcher. Who was the person you talked to at the police department?
I'm sorry, I don't have my notes with me, and it's been a while. It's one of your sergeants.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Councilman Baldwin.
During the construction,
Yeah, you gotta point the lock at you directly in your mouth.
can you hear me? During the construction, we're gonna have those signals. Will they have a height restriction on them? Will there be wires across that would prohibit trucks from going across Gardner Road there?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So during construction, there's going to be the signalization at the ramps. Will there be wires across those temporary poles that would have a height restriction precluding the big trucks from going through there?
Tim McEldowney, you may have to help me out on that because I think those interim span wire signal was part of the Locust Street Improvement Project, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, so I think, actually, Mayor, I think this gets back a little bit to your comment too, that, yeah, there's gonna be temporary signals with this current phase. So each of those ramps will have signals on them, but no, they're designed to have the ultimate or the minimum clearance is required for all vehicles to cross.
Actually, the signalization that I was talking about, Tim, is really more between now and the start of construction in 2024. Is there any temporary signalization that's going to be put in there?
Yes.
Okay, there
Yes,
will be.
the current project has temporary signals at each ramp,
Do you know when those are going to be installed?
this summer. Yes,
This summer?
With this project. So-
Great.
So by the end of the year, the schedule is for this project to be done by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you very much. That's phase one, the one that includes
Yes.
Locust Street.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yes.
Hi, this is Jim Purdy, the city administrator. Has there been any discussion locally about moving the weigh station? I know there's some discussion at the state level a few years ago. Moving the weigh station would push trucks down further south that are trying to avoid the weigh station, keep them off, and reduce traffic on 199th Street.
I don't know who needs to comment on this, but as the Metro engineer at the Olathe office with Johnson County under my responsibility, I've never heard of any comments about moving the weigh station.
Interesting. We had heard, as part of the Southwest Johnson County Transportation Plan quite a while back, that they were considering moving that weigh station because it had too small of a footprint to be able to handle additional truck traffic. Has that changed then?
So I've started with KDOT in May, and as I've said, I've not heard anything mentioned in that regard, so
Okay.
it predated my presence.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I'd love to see if there's somebody at KDOT that, that might have been involved in those original discussions that might be able to shed some light on that.
So this is Leroy here. I'll jump in here. I've been at the district for a little over 3 years. And in that 3-year time span, I've not heard any substantive conversation about moving that weigh station.
Okay.
That's not to say that, there may not have been that discussion. It sounds like there was, but it predates my time at the district. And as I said, in the last 3 years, I've not heard anything that would indicate that any sorts of plans are imminent.
Okay, so yeah, 2013, I think, is when the last transportation plan was passed. So that might give you a little bit of a reference of point in time.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep.
Michael, who would we direct that inquiry to or to start that discussion?
So the consult process is coming up. That could be something that could be brought up at that meeting,
Okay.
identifying who has any awareness of past talks on that. We might have to do some digging to find the right person and how it originated, whose idea it was, and what benefits might be gleaned from doing something different than what we have today.
Okay. And one more question.
A
from,
big influencer, a big stakeholder in this, of course, would be the Kansas Highway Patrol, the motor vehicle, the enforcement, the Motor Vehicle Association, whatever that arm is. I'm having a brain cramp.
I think it's
right
Motor
now.
Vehicle Enforcement Division, I think is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep. Mark?
One final question on the timeline. So we're in the preliminary design phase, and obviously there's a lot going on there because you're looking at the ultimate and the interim. My question is, why does the final design, why is it pegged at 17, 18 months when the vast majority of it will have to be done during the preliminary design? Is that, just for my reference, can you educate me on that?
Well, really, the final design, like I mentioned earlier, kind of what's driving the back end of the schedule, including final design, is the right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation. We can, it's possible that, hold on. With the, like I said, the right-of-way acquisition has to take place first, then utilities relocate. And then just kind of within that time period, that's just the time that we'll use to finish up the design. We're still having to work on or fine tune how to handle traffic. So we've got some other intermediate milestones in there where we have to, like I said, develop traffic control plans, signing, pavement marking, lighting, and things like that. So there's some, like, while the design, is pretty firmed up by the time you get to plans 50% complete, there are still a lot of things on the backside of the schedule that have to be done before we can let a project.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, appreciate it. We are very much looking forward to seeing some big time work starting on phases 2 and 3 of this project. So thank you again for your time, and good to see you, Steve Hale. You've probably driven across that bridge more than any of us, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Is someone else raising their hand?
All right, here.
Oh,
Can I speak?
We usually don't have public comment during presentations, but if you've got a specific question, you can come to the podium.
I have a question. Yeah, hi, I'm Rocky Gupta, and I'm the owner of the Phillips 66. And you talk about concerns about the traffic, and as we all know, the Quick Trip is going to be coming in the next few months or a year or something. That truck traffic is going to quadruple in next year as soon as the QT is operational, because it's a big truck stop and it's coming. And I'm actually shocked by the presentation that was just given to us about closing that access to the Phillips 66, because we just had part of the negotiation that we went through, part of the Locust Street easements and so on. We actually, our attorneys worked together and made sure that that access is gonna stay open until the project is completed. So we have that in writing, and that's the agreement that we have. At a minimum, that access will always be open right in and right out, even after the project is completed. So I just wanted to mention that so people are aware of that agreement that we already have with the city. So,
And actually, can you comment, maybe Simon, on that, on the right in, right out? That, you're saying that's, according to your plans, is going to be closed? According to your, that you put up there?
Yep.
Right, yeah. Where the hatched lines are?
yeah, so that hash lines, if they're proposing to close that, we need to pull out that agreement that we already have with the city and read through that and make sure we all understand it. Because that's a major part of our business. If that gets closed, we can't accept that. You know, and that's why we had the negotiation that we did, almost a year of those negotiations last year, because we have spent tremendous amount of money and we gotta make sure our business is not impacted. So if we're closing that, we obviously cannot accept that, and that's why we have that in writing from the city. So, just to be aware of that.
Can you speak to the time period there? My understanding was that east access would stay there while phase one, while Locust and 191st is getting relocated. But
No,
once that is complete, that would be closed.
no.
So
That
at the
we-
beginning of phase two,
No,
closed.
the phase one, that once the Locust Street is completed, you were only closing 191st Street access from Gardner Road. That access into our property, according to the agreement that we have, will always, when I say always, will stay open for right in and right out, at a minimum.
Do we have that agreement?
Yeah. Can I speak?
Sure do.
Yeah, is Mukesh my partner?
Yeah, so, Tim Warwick was our legal counsel that was retained on that, and I was looking for the documents. He's right, there were extensive discussions and negotiations as part of right-of-way acquisition, where we talked about access points for that parcel. I'm gonna have to reach out to Tim on the specifics. But,
Okay.
Will.
All right, yeah, we need to get that cleared up as soon as possible.
My name is Mukesh Goel, and I'm the co-owner of this Phillips 66. I'm shocked and amazed by your comments when you made that there's a lot of traffic, truck traffic comes into that Phillips 66 from this road, and you said that bridge is getting bad because a lot of trucks are coming. I don't understand why then the city approved another truck stop next to this property. Same road configuration, it's going to actually increase the truck traffic 4 times. And as per my knowledge, they're going to start pretty soon that thing to construct it. Your ultimate project is going to be finished in 2024, but before that, in 3 years, QT comes in with a truck stop, more traffic. So what's the city planning? On the top of it, to hurt our business, you're proposing to close this access, which is definitely you are favoring a big corporation versus the small businessman. I find it very, very shocking what the city is doing here. And why did they approve another truck stop when you were so much concerned about the truck traffic? And because of that, this big project is going on. So
Well, the city, this is not the city.
tell me that, and then you want to close our main access. That's going to take our 50 to 60% of the business in one shot. Although we have a written agreement with our attorney, Aaron, we have a legal document which prevents that to be happen. So
We're gonna figure this
that's my
out.
feeling. I'm sorry if I spoken or if I shouted. I don't have that intention, but just my BP got up, as you can understand.
I understand.
We spend so much money on this, and we are a small businessman. We are being hurt from all the corners in this. So that's my point.
Well,
I'm sorry, I respect you guys, and I respect that I'm doing business in this city, and I'm very grateful to that. but something is happening which is very, very wrong.
Yeah. How long have you been, how long have you had this, this station?
We have owned the car wash for almost 4 years now, and the Phillips 66 we bought
3
about
years.
2 years ago.
Three.
Two and a half years ago.
Yeah,
3
about
years
3
ago.
years.
We were actually we were just having that discussion with Burns and Mac. Remember, we had those discussions about the design of this bridge.
Well, yeah, that's why I was
And-
thinking it was gonna close after phase one.
That's what Burns and Mac recommended.
Well, that was because it's
So
a
that was-
KDOT recommendation.
Correct. And so the question that we've got here is, not really a question, it's really more of a charge on our part is to make sure that we come up with a solution that not only, helps, that helps the traffic flow, but also is gonna preserve their ability to do business.
Well, see, we have agreed to.
We clearly agreed to that. It's in writing, it's signed by city, signed by us, and our attorney was involved. We can produce that document. It was 100% assured, and there was another attorney from the behalf of city who negotiated with our attorney. And 100% it was agreed that this access will never be closed, at least for right in, right out, even after the completion of the
The ultimate project.
ultimate project. But unless the ultimate project starts, there will be no median here, even that's written in that
Even
document.
that's in there, that, and that.
So how
until the
can
last-
you plan and showing that amazes me.
Tim, can you weigh in on that? Are you aware of?
Yeah, I can just go back to our previous discussion. This goes back to the previous owners of the property. And we always talked about, someday it would be right in, right out at best, once we got to the ultimate interchange. But it was our goal to, especially with the first phase, to maintain a minimum of a right in, right out. And we're actually going to maintain full access through the first phase. And the question was always going to be, okay, during the second phase, our goal was to hopefully at least still have a right in, right out during the second phase. So, I mean, I think, these are always issues we have around interchanges. Anytime there are improvements, and hopefully we can work with KDOT and see about the possibilities, maybe of maintaining the right in, right out through the second phase here.
It sounds like we have an agreement that says we must.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, as a non-engineer, person sitting here, I don't understand why the right in, right out would affect traffic that drastically. I mean, just looking at it, obviously a left-hand turn right there would be, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
I know the right in, right out, I don't see why that affects it.
can we pull up the ultimate design, please?
Of course.
All right. So
Ultimate, yeah.
on the ultimate design, that's really tight. And that's gonna create an issue. If there's a way we could possibly offset or whatever that particular entrance, that might work, but yeah, on phase 3 as it stands now, and again, that's 2030 plus, and we could probably revisit that, but it sounds like we have an agreement that says that we must preserve that, so we're gonna have to have some discussions on that with KDOT and our legal people and our engineers to see if we can preserve that right in, right out.
Well, as I stated earlier, I was concerned about that driveway, but now I'm more concerned that if we already have an agreement
Yeah.
signed and we have a direction that we promised and everybody agreed to,
Absolutely.
we can't change that.
Nope.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everyone, appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Sin, appreciate it.
Mayor, just a closing comment on the same subject.
Yes.
Is KDOT or is there land or easement available to put in a short right-hand turn lane similar to what Quick Trip has off of Old 56?
I don't know. We'd have to look at that from an engineering perspective, obviously.
Yeah, but
I mean, you would think that at least with the interim diamond, there might be. I don't think there's going to be, looking at the final result, the final version, I don't think that there is, but we'll have to figure out something, even if it's an offset.
Well, I mean, we're just ahead of this enough, and with the agreement that Rocky and his partner spoke of, I think that we're ahead of this enough, and look at landowners and easement and kind of that right-of-way piece, that maybe we might be able to slice in a right-hand turn only entrance on that southbound Gardner Road. But let's stay close to it and be good partners to our local businesses.
Of course, that's not a dispute here. Anyone else? All right, we're gonna hash this out amongst our staff, and we'll be in touch very shortly on a solution.
Thank you.
And again, KDOT engineers, we need to have a pretty close discussion over the next couple of weeks to months to get this hashed out. All right, anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, gentlemen. We will be in very close communication with you and your staffs, and obviously your engineers and our engineers are working together. So thank you again.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay, let's move on. We have a 2020 end-of-year financial report from our finance director, Matt Wolf. We're used to good news from you, Matt, so let's see if we can keep it going. Setting the bar high for you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Yes.
Recitation. Oh, I am? Okay. It's an important part of the budgeting process to review the financial health of the city. Tonight I'll be presenting the unaudited year-end financial report for 2020. For the general fund, revenues were favorable to estimate by 10.5% or 1.37 million. And please keep in mind throughout this presentation, this is kind of a budgetary performance report, so we'll be comparing actual data to our revised budget, also called the estimate. Expenditures were unfavorable to the estimate by negative 2.8% or 361,000. Fund balance favorable to estimate 38% compared to 32%. What this means is we were estimating 2020 to end around 4 million fund balance. We're actually at $5 million. Going to a little bit more detail, the sales tax and use taxes exceeded expectations due to strong performance from Gardner's unique mix of businesses. Primarily grocery store, Walmart, and our fast food were all performed strongly over this past year. The Coronavirus Relief Fund grant was a large contributing factor to revenues exceeding the revised budget. Please notice on the slide that I broke out recurring revenues versus grants. About half of our revenues that exceeded budget were from grants. General fund expenditures were unfavorable to estimate by negative 2.8% or 361,000. About $400,000 unfavorable variance due to the pandemic expenditures. 46,000 to funding agreement expenditures. And what those are basically agreements we have with developers where say a developer has a project that they want to do in the community, they're requesting incentives, they give the city a certain amount of money that we can use to then hire experts of our choosing to evaluate those projects. And sometimes that leads to budget variances because we typically receive funding from the developers at the very beginning of a project or sometimes at the very end. And then we have expenditures that might occur in multiple different years. It's hard to time when they actually occur. And then if you look over the general fund and all the different revisions, there's lots of little line items that go, some go up, some go down compared to budget. In aggregate, there was another $85,000 in favorable variance. "2020 ended with a budget surplus of about $1 million. Although sales taxes have outperformed expectations, it is a volatile revenue source. If the economy turns south, sales tax can go away very quickly. The long-term effects of the pandemic are unknown at this point. We've already seen some slowdown in development activity. Historically, the city has targeted a fund balance of between 20 and 30%. Staff recommends targeting a fund balance of 30% moving forward. In recent rating calls with S&P, they basically indicated that the higher we are, or closer to 30%, the more favorable that would be seen for our credit rating. So if we compare basically the fund balances over the years, we were about 3.8 million in 2019. We went up to about 5 million at the end of 2020. Our budget for 2021 projected an end of year fund balance of 3.9 million basically, but with our new recommendation of keeping close to 30%, it would be around 4.3 million. So what we're suggesting is use of that $1 million surplus to help ensure that we have a strong fund balance at the end of the year. In the electric fund, revenues were unfavorable by 0.9% or 179,000. Expenses favorable by 1.9% or 344,000. Fund balance to estimate, fund balance was up to 79% compared to the estimated 76%. We ended with basically about a $14.2 million fund balance. And then we also have about 3.1 million in electric capital reserve fund. The revenue difference was mostly in retail sales, about a negative 177,000, and residential distribution installations, but it was offset slightly by higher than anticipated revenues from Dogwood, about an extra 115,000. Expenses overall had a favorable variance of approximately 803,000 in operational savings, or savings in operational expenses. Most of this was due to wholesale electric purchasing. These savings are offset by an unfavorable variance of about 458,000 in capital projects. Some of these included Sheen's backfeed, part of Cherry Price project where you spent about $376,000 in buying materials last year. And then also we had some additional costs from smart meters, and we also had a CO2 protection project. End of the year 2019, we were at 12.4 million. We were estimating at the end of 2020 we'd be at 14 million. Like I said earlier, we're at 14.2 million, so we're kind of right on target. But please note, we do plan to pay out about 1.5 million in cash for electric infrastructure improvements for Prairie Trace development coming up, which will essentially bring us back down to that 2019 level of fund balance. In the water fund, we had revenue that was favorable to the estimate by 1.5% or 492,000. Expenses were unfavorable by negative 0.48 or 355,000. On the revenue side, retail sales exceeded expectations by nearly 279,000. The water utility also received a SMAT grant for 422,000, the Santa Fe project. System development fees did not meet expectations and had an unfavorable variance of 180,000. On the expense side, there was a negative variance that's due mostly to capital projects, replacing new water lines in conjunction with the Santa Fe Street project. That was not originally in the project budget. If you remember when we first started doing the Santa Fe project, I think it was first budgeted in like 2017 or so. And we had a small amount in for relocation of utility lines, but then it was decided at a later date when we were going to make all these street improvements, might as well replace these really outdated lines. So the project cost went up, but we had a grant to partially offset that. 2019 end of year fund balance was actually negative 20 million. That was mostly due to a timing issue between costs for the water treatment plant and receipt of bonds. We were estimating in the revised budget to end around 4.5 million, and we actually ended 2020 at 4.6 billion, so we're right on target again. Please note, this 60% fund balance, it looks really high, but will decrease rapidly over time due to debt service for the water treatment plant. In the wastewater fund, revenues were unfavorable to budget by 27.8% or 2.5 million. Expenses were favorable by 19%, or $1.6 million. The fund balance was unfavorable to the budget, 22% compared to 28%. On the revenue side, the variance is primarily due to $1.8 million in bond proceeds that were planned for 2020, but the debt issue was delayed to 2021. Wastewater operating revenues had a negative variance of $211,000, and system development fees had a negative variance of $400,000. $1.48 million of expense savings is due to delayed capital projects. Delayed projects included the BDP belt press at Kill Creek facility, wastewater treatment plant clarifier improvements, UV disinfection system, Nike lift station and force main improvements, and remove Sunset lift station. We did incur some costs, about $846,000 so far for Prairie Trace sewer improvements in 2020 that offset some of the savings from the delayed projects. In 2019, the fund balance was $1.9 million. It has dropped to $1.5 million. In summary, general fund is above 30% target at 38% fund balance. Or another way of looking at it, we're about $1 million higher than the original budget, and we're at $5 million in fund balance. The electric fund is robust, with about $14.2 million in fund balance in the electric fund and another $3.1 million in the capital reserve. Water fund is adequate. It has a large percentage fund balance right now, but we know it will deplete quickly over time to the water treatment plant. Wastewater fund needs further discussion because it is struggling to keep up with anticipated capital costs and planned debt service. Operating revenues have been stagnant in recent years. Anticipated capital costs have been increased significantly since the rate study. I'll present a CIP update to the governing body next month, and this will kind of set a stage for a more engaged discussion on infrastructure and financial planning. I expect the sewer improvements to be a focal point of that conversation, and same with streets. That concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate it. I'm going to start with Councilman Gargorsek, as I'm deferring to him because he is remote. So, Randy, you have anything for us?
No, but I appreciate the opportunity to go first. I will say that I appreciate the thoroughness. I had numerous questions that Jim Pruding worked with me on that made better sense, and I look forward to the infrastructure conversation that's forthcoming. Thank you, man.
So am I, Randy. So am I. Thank you. Mark.
Matt, thanks. That was good as usual. As far as this infrastructure update on CIP, I know that's something you're going to do relatively quickly. I'm thinking it sounds like we need to have a work session on infrastructure completely. Yep. So are we thinking that's going to be pushed out to April, May-ish?
I'm hoping to have basically have a work session on it, probably the second meeting in April.
Okay, thank you.
April 19th? Okay.
I knew you'd be on top of it.
Well, that's why he's one of the best. But, Council President, you got anything?
No, nothing.
Councilwoman Deaton?
No, thank you. I'm good, thanks for asking.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it. I know we've got some decisions going to have to be made, especially for long-term planning. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to public comments. We don't have any public hearings this evening. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Just as a reminder, if you wish to make public comment but do not want to come to City Hall, you can always leave an email to our city clerk at cityclerk@gardnerkansas.gov, and I will read that comment into the record. So please take advantage of that. If you're in presence here and you would like to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. If you do wish to speak, there's a 5-minute time clock, my right, your left, and no profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, the floor is now open. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Item 7.
Item 7, Council President would like to remove item 7 from the consent agenda. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda items 1 through 6 and number 8.
So moved. Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Consent agenda items 1 through 6 and 8 pass. Consent agenda item number 7. Consider authorizing the execution of an agreement with BHC Roads to provide engineering services to update the city's technical specifications. Council President, your questions, please.
Yeah, actually, I spoke with Jim a little bit about this, but I was wondering if he could maybe clarify for everyone. My concern was it's more consulting fees, and I asked. My question was, is this something we could do in-house or hire the position in-house? It's a substantial amount of money, and so I was wondering if you could just kind of clarify that for everyone.
Yeah, Tim, you want to come up and describe what actually it is and why it needs to be done in such short order?
Sure, and yeah, our specs go back to 2007. So, I mean, we've been needing to update them for many years, and staff just hasn't had the time to really do it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to as far as the timing of it. And we've come to a point where KDHE is basically demanding that, okay, especially our wastewater and water specs have got to be updated for them to continue, reviewing and approving our plans. So that's essentially where it is. I would just add that the cost that we're, besides just updating the specs, we're having them look at all our design criteria. We're also having them update our standard drawings. And one thing that we're really sorely need to have done is to make sure all our codes, for instance, the land development code that was added, that everything in there is in agreement so that we don't have, because we found places, where we're not in agreement within our own code spec. We need to get all that cleaned up. So we've lumped in a lot more into this than just doing the specification. So hopefully that is helpful.
Thank you.
I do have a question now that you brought that up. So is this not something that our new deputy city administrator can help with? Because you said we would have less consulting fees and less, et cetera.
Yeah, the
Okay.
technical knowledge that's needed to do this, no, that's not
Okay.
in line with
I
that.
didn't know if it was the right skill set or what. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where they'll be working with Amy to identify points of conflict, and then they would work together to make the changes.
Well, KDHE would require somebody to sign off on it.
Correct. It has to be a certified individual. Yeah. All right, and the other question I had was actually more for our new Public Works Director. Welcome, Kellen. Appreciate you being here. I know that there's some concerns about staffing right now within some of our departments. I know that we had discussed bringing on at least one more engineer into that department. Will there be a discussion on that now that Colin's here about getting an additional staffer?
Well, we did replace the two engineers.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, so one of them had been vacant for quite a while. We have replaced the two engineers that are part of our.
That's great. That's great to hear. Very happy to hear that. So that'll help also with some of the issues with time and
Yes.
just throughput within our departments. So good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? That's all the comments you had?
Yes, that's all.
Okay, great. All right. I will entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 7.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Winters, second Baldwin, that we approve consent agenda item number 7 and authorize the execution agreement with BHC Roads to provide engineering services to update the city's technical specifications. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 7 passes. Moving on to planning and zoning consent. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the planning and zoning consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and,
Second.
okay, motion, Gargorsek, second, Deaton, that we approve the planning and zoning consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Planning and zoning consent agenda passes. There's no committee recommendations, no old business. New business item number 1. Consider selecting a vice president, I should say, of the council. We already have a president. So this is my agenda item. The governing body rules of procedure in chapter 2, sections E and F dictate that a president and a vice president shall be appointed from members of the city council by a majority vote. Council president presides at meetings when the mayor is temporarily absent due to travel, illness, or other reasons. If both the mayor and the council president are temporarily absent, the council vice president would preside. Our former council member, Rich Melton, had the position of vice president of the council, so now we must have an election to determine a new council vice president. So basically how this works is I will take nominations from the floor, and then we will have a vote. So I will open the floor to nominations.
Mayor, I nominate Randy Gargorsek as council vice president.
All right. Do I have a second on the nomination? Seeing none, the nomination fails for lack of a second. Anyone else have a nomination?
I nominate Mark Baldwin, Vice President.
All right. Is there a second for the nomination?
I'll second that.
All right, there's a nomination on the floor for Mark Baldwin as council vice president. It has been duly seconded. All those in favor of that nomination, if there's I'm sorry, my apologies. Anyone other nominations for the position of vice president? Any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, I will close the nominations, and I will ask for a motion and a second to appoint Casey Deaton as the council vice president.
Point of order, sir.
I'm sorry, not Casey Deaton. I'm sorry, not Casey Deaton. Mark Baldwin, my apologies. Mark Baldwin for vice president. No, sorry, Casey. Yes, well, that's for the nomination, but not for the vote. So
moved.
second. All right, motion, Deaton second. Winters, that we appoint Mark Baldwin as council vice president. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Mark. You are council vice president.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not going to ask you guys to switch seats. It'll be set up for the next meeting. Thank you. All right. New business item number 2. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the city to, yes, did someone make a point? Okay. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the city to construct certain main traffic ways and authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the costs thereof. Matt Wolf.
At the last council meeting, the governing body approved the US 56 city-state agreement, where the city is partnering with KDOT to make improvements to Main Street. This is kind of a follow-up to that, where the city plans to issue GEO bonds in the amount of $2.21 million to finance its portion of the project. Annual debt service will be paid from the Special Highway Fund, and staff recommends that you adopt the proposed resolution.
So this is housekeeping, basically.
Hmm?
Okay. Any public comment on new business item number 2? Seeing none, any questions for Matt on this item? I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 2.
So moved.
So moved. Second?
All right. Motion Baldwin, second Gargorsek, that we adopt resolution number 2079, a resolution authorizing the city of Gardner, Kansas to construct improvements to certain main traffic ways and authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the costs thereof, all pursuant to KSA 12-685 et sec. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gargorsek,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
All right, resolution 2079 passes. Thank you for all your hard work on this, Matt, appreciate it. All right, new business on number 3. Consider approval of this 2021 state legislative agenda. Amy Nasta, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
The purpose of the state legislative agenda is to provide City Council and staff with a list of legislative topics that are of particular interest to follow for the city. By outlining the agenda, both council and staff will be prepared to respond to legislators and professional organizations regarding the impact proposed legislation has on the city of Gardner. By participating in this process, the city is pursuing legislative policies that seek to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of local government operations for Gardner. The city's legislative agenda incorporates the joint city-county platform to assert our common positions on all of our state legislatures. The county is requesting this practice continue. In the CAF, you'll have noticed that there is a list of the items. There have been minimal changes this year from last year. Johnson County's platform did not change substantially as well. Most of them have just been in nomenclature or cleaning up the language, which was done by Johnson County as well in most cases.
All right, thank you very much, Amy. Is there any public comment on new business item number 3? Seeing none, I'll entertain some questions. I know that there were some concerns that were already expressed by some of the members of the council on a couple of these items, but I'll let them speak on it unless they have anything to add.
I have nothing.
Okay, Council President? You were one of those that had a question.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. Councilwoman Deaton?
Yeah, I just had one question. So I went back through, I know this is a hot topic over the last couple of years, and I went through the minutes of the last 2 times that this came up. And I know last year it was discussed that we weren't doing enough to push Gardner's agenda enough. And I know with COVID it probably made some things difficult, but we were gonna start having more meetings for Gardner specific with our legislators to make sure that we weren't getting lost with the county. Did that happen last year?
I think a lot of that was impacted by COVID, but I know that we do plan to try and do some of that moving forward, hopefully now that we'll be able to attend more of those meetings and that infrastructure has been better set up to do it virtually even if we have the opportunity to.
Awesome, thank you. That was it.
That was one of the things that we knew was going to be a shortfall this year. There was a significant amount of time in the Kansas Capitol where they weren't really allowing very many people to go in at all because of COVID issues, so that changed some things for us. But we definitely have the intention to be lobbying for our interests much more in the coming years. So, Mark?
As you know, in the past, I detest this document immensely.
I knew that.
I don't like anything about it.
Sure.
I have a big, long set of bullet points that I could get into, but I don't think it'll matter. So the only thing I'll really say is that our representatives aren't beholden to the city of Gardner. The city of Gardner does not have a vote. They are beholden to their constituents. So the representatives should be hearing from the people, not from this body. We were not elected to represent the people at the state level. So anything that we have to do with the state, we already do, as you saw tonight with KDOT and other entities. I could go on, but yes, I dislike this document.
I knew you were going to say that, but I wanted to have you be on,
I tried
on
to
the
cut it
record
short
for
this
it.
time.
No, I appreciate that. Councilmember Gargorsek. Yeah, Gargorsek. Sorry. I got my tongue
Thank you,
twisted.
Mayor. I have nothing to add.
Okay. There was a question that was posed to me about one portion of the document, and I just wanted to be transparent on this, and that is transportation issues under Section 3, bullet point E, about new sources of revenue to increase transportation funding regarding the property or with regard to the property tax lid. I think as we have had a lot of discussion about transportation this evening, I thought it would be good to at least address this point, because they were talking about new motor fuel taxes and taxes on electrics, hybrids, and new license and registration fees, toll revenues, user fees, vehicle weight fees, and other revenue sources. And one of the reasons why we were discussing this is because I think that a lot of people at the state level don't understand, or a lot of people here don't understand what's going on at the state level from the standpoint of KDOT and the position that they're in right now with regard to funding issues. They are very tight. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that we did get pushed back to 2024. I don't think that they wanted to discuss that here, but I think that's one of the reasons that this has been deferred. And when we have a significant need for transportation improvements, case in point, 56 highway that goes through town here, you know, without revenues to support that, and there's two ways to go with that. One is that you can keep the state from raiding KDOT's reserves, and then you've also got the situation of, well, we're not collecting nearly as much in gas taxes right now because of the fact you have more electric and hybrid vehicles, and you also have a lot of transient traffic that comes through town, specifically trucks, that don't pay gas tax in the state of Kansas, and yet they're degrading the roads. And so we are looking for options and opportunities to try to enhance the funding sources, as well as look at the cost side of things, to try to make KDOT more solvent, I guess is the real rub here. And so that's why that particular section is in there. So we're not pushing for higher taxes per se. We're just trying to keep KDOT solvent so that we can get our roads fixed. And so that's why that's in there. So, any questions? All right. Any other comments other than Mark, who's going to vote against this anyway? All right. All right, I'll entertain a motion on new business on number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Robert, second Deaton, that we approve the 2021 state legislative agenda for the city of Gardner. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? All right, the 2021 state legislative agenda for the city of Gardner passes 4-1. And I appreciate your stand on principle, Mark. I really do. Thank you. All right, that's the end of the main body of the agenda. I'm going to move on to council updates. Oh, okay. Matt has a brief presentation for us. Does staff have anything for council? I'm going to start with the finance director, Matt Wolf, who has something teed up for us.
Okay, I have an update on kind of what happened recently with energy costs for the governing body.
Thank you.
A little bit of background for everyone.
Matt, before you get started, is there any way that I could see this this presentation based on its importance?
I believe the city clerk's going to email you a copy of it.
Thank you.
And if you can take off your mask. It muffles your sound, so just want to.
I think it's important to start with kind of a little bit of a background of what happened. We had a winter event, basically a prolonged cold snap that hit not just us, but multiple states, a large region of the country. It created an energy crisis, which led to a large spike in natural gas and then also electric prices. Kansas declared a state of natural disaster. During this time, there was a large increase in the price to purchase power. For example, in 2020, power costs for that third week in February were about $65,000. In 2021, for the third week in February, it was about $5.5 million. When we get invoiced, there are some adjustments that are made. Dogwood did power up for a little bit, so that was there's an adjustment made that lowered that estimated cost to the city to about $4.5 million. City's rate structure has a service charge and a base rates that are both fixed, but like other utilities, we have something called a power cost adjustment. The name of that might change a little bit per utility or per state, but utilities generally have a ability to spread out the cost of purchasing over a 12-month period. The $4.5 million cost will result in an estimated increase of about 2.5 cents for every kilowatt hour of energy consumed. The average residential user will probably see, and keep in mind these are estimates, probably an increase of about $10 on their March bill, about $18.52 on their April bill, and over the period of March through December, a cumulative total of about $275. A high consumption user, your all electric users, could see an increase of up to 55 or around 55.67 in March, $66.34 in April, and a cumulative total of March through December of about $562.25. For commercial users, the average might see in March about $44.98, in April $84.37, and then cumulative total March through December of $882.25. Medium consumption commercial user, these are probably like your big box stores. In March, about $503 or $504 in additional cost. In April, about $1,038, and then March through December cumulative total over $12,000. And then high consumption users, your industrial type users, might see in March about a $1,500 increase, in April an $1,846 increase, then cumulative March through December about $21,000. That kind of concludes the financial update for you.
Can you email that to all of us, not just Randy?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into this a little bit more, I've had several questions on our generators. Can you or Gons briefly explain why those were not fired and
Yes, our two gas turbines, they're dual fuel. However, they burn gas and diesel. Since I've been here over the past 20 years, they have only burned gas. During the energy crisis, gas was not available for generation. That was the main reason.
To clarify, he's meaning natural gas.
Right. And this was driven by natural gas. I mean, that was the big driver for all of these increases, and it wasn't just affecting us, it was affecting the entire Midwest, and from Texas all the way up to North Dakota.
Yes, and Gons, always feel free to step in and correct me if I misspeak here, but it was natural gas, which spiked in price, and that was often used to generate electricity, and that spiked in price. So everybody buying even from the national grid got hit pretty hard too.
And the same natural gas is used to heat homes too.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big squeeze.
So if I can give you a comparison, prior to February 15th, the price of gas was $2.93. At the peak of the crisis, it was $629.
I can't even imagine. I think that's one of the reasons.
And Gons, what was the, sorry, Mayor.
No, that's all right. Go on.
And conversely, based on that commodity price of $600 per gallon of gas, what would have been the subsequent generation of electricity and the cost of?
If we were to generate,
Yes, sir.
it would have cost us about $4 million a day because the units have a high heat rate. It's about 15,000 BTU per kilowatt hour. So if you do the math and you use the high gas price, it will have cost the city about $4 million.
Thank you.
Day.
That was one of the problems that a lot of the city utilities that have natural gas experienced. They were really up against it. I know that there's some towns out west that own their own gas utility and really got slammed. Like cities are looking to unincorporate because of this. So this is a financial emergency that's affecting virtually every community that has city utilities. The good news is that we have a robust electric fund, although we probably have to have a discussion about whether or not we use it, how we use it potentially to help to blunt some of the effects of this. So is that a discussion that the council wishes to have?
yes?
Yeah, I would.
Mark, you're the expert here.
Yes.
We can have a discussion. I think any discussion at this point would be premature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number one, yes, we have our estimates here for the PCA increase, but we don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. There's several power sourcing entities that are going bankrupt at the moment.
Correct.
Texas's largest one just got hit with a $2.1 billion bill and is going bankrupt.
Yep.
That's 1.5 million customers. So I think there's going to be a ripple effect as we go, and I don't think we should do anything immediately, particularly since the numbers, while some of them were not lovely, for the vast majority, it looks like it's not going to be horrible. It could have been much worse for us. So, not saying that we shouldn't look at it, but even if we do something, I would be opposed to the one-time thing like we did before. I've always said we've been overcharging. We should roll it in. So kind of like this would be a PCA increase. We could adjust our rates to bring it down, which then does not mean you get a one-time check.
Correct.
This isn't government stimulus. You know, you would, at your usage, you would get a discount, a coupon, if you will, for the rolling time period, whatever we do.
So are we then, is there a consensus for us to start taking a look from a financial perspective as to what can be done potentially to look at the rates, to see if there's, and again, this is outside the rate study, and the rate study said one thing, and this would be basically saying, okay, because of extraordinary circumstances here, for the next 12 months,
I think because we have the rate study, it should be coming up here relatively soon. I think we should wait for it. That may delay this 6 months to a year.
yeah.
But you know, it's going to be incremental anyway, whatever we did, at least in my mind. So I think we should look at, you know, our 10-year forecast and where we're going. You know, we've got Prairie Trace coming in for 1.5 million, and just what we're looking at, and then we could consider a rate change over 5 years.
All right, so I'm going to go back to residential all electric because that's the biggest, that's the group that's being affected other than large commercial, the all electric, and they're getting hit from two directions here. One is obviously they have electric heat, and so they had to use more electricity. At the same time, the cost of electricity went nuts for a 4-day period.
Yes.
So is there any possibility that we could discuss, you know, I mean, we've gone, I know that Amy's here, so maybe we could have some, Amy just happened to be here, so, but this is, I know that we're going to get a lot of phone calls. We're going to get a lot of angry people, and I just want to see if there's any way that we could talk about having some sort of a discussion on how to rectify or address that.
I mean, like I said, we can have whatever discussion. I'm just saying that I think whatever we do will be a rate change that would be long term. So it's not going to change anybody tomorrow. So I think, you know, the all electric did get hit because they're all electric and it was a prolonged period of time. But don't discount that 88% of our community is heated with gas.
Yep.
So expect your Kansas gas bill to go up.
Oh, what's going to?
So I don't think this is, you know, precluded just to the all electric.
My opinion, similar to what Mark is saying, I think we need to wait to some degree, but I'd also be more in favor of using that money sooner than later, even before a rate study. After we've analyzed this further, not all at once, not like the 3-month or whatever we did before, but somehow building some of that reserve to offset some of that immediate. I mean, you've got people that, $50 may mean quite a bit. And if we can help to offset that more in the short term, I'd be more in favor of that.
Well, if we want to have a discussion up here, that's great, but I think we're going to have, staff do some due diligence.
Yep, that's what I'm
So
asking for.
if
Is there a
we-
consensus on it?
If we would, what I think may be beneficial here would be some sort of a subcommittee. I would be willing to be on it to work with Amy and Matt and Jim and whoever else gone on options to bring back to the table.
I think the UAC would be a good place to, maybe get the entire UAC together.
Yeah, they would
To work-
definitely need to approve at some
Absolutely,
point.
absolutely. I think they need to come in on the front end. They're citizens and they're our primary advisory committee for utilities. I think it's very important that we get them involved as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest is get the UAC involved, and I'm agreeing with Mark, and I take it a step further. I don't know that our cost and credits have all arrived, considering that this is a volatile commodity. So I don't want to get ahead of our skis as some of us do. So I think working with the UAC and getting Mark involved and pushing forward to Todd's point, I think is good business.
I would agree. So let's just do that. We'll give a charge to the staff to start looking at potential alternatives and get UAC involved. When is your next meeting, Mark? Do you know?
Thursday.
This coming Thursday. Okay, there we go. And obviously those meetings are open to the public. It's going to be here in the chambers, right? Okay, so citizen input, very important. If you wish to come to UAC to discuss this very important item, please do. It's very important. It affects everybody in the city. So now you're going to have a crowd, Mark. So.
So what night is that, and what time is that, Mark?
This coming Thursday.
Thursday at 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Council chambers?
Correct.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Gut punch. Usually you come up with good news. You know.
I do have one last comment.
Oh, sure,
I just
please.
want to have a special thanks to Amy Foster. She's been fantastic these last couple of weeks. So kind of working with God's and getting some numbers for us here tonight.
Thank you, Amy. And I know when I was in City Hall when this all was going down, and literally the numbers were changing by the minute at the height of this. So thank you very much for turning this around as quickly as you did. Thank you again. All right. Let me see. City Clerk, do you have anything for us?
I would just like to point out that we have, I believe, 4 or 5 applications for the Planning Commission opening. But on that note, Rich Melton was on the interview board for the Planning Commission, and he was also on the interview board for the CPAC.
Yes.
So his interview slot would need to be filled by someone to fill that.
Okay. Well, we have right now Randy's on the interview board for Planning Commission, correct? Or is it Tori?
It's Tori.
It's Tori. Okay, Randy, would you be willing to sit in on Planning Commission?
Be my pleasure.
Okay, we'll do that. And then for CPAC, I think that it makes sense for Casey to be on the interview board for the CPAC since she's the, well, we haven't even talked about a CPAC representative yet. Okay, this would be a good time to talk about that. So,
Casey, do you?
yes. Well, I was, let me get to it, okay? So the preliminary on this is that Rich Melton was the council representative on the CPAC, the Citizens Police Advisory Committee, and I know that you served as the chair of the Citizens Police Advisory Committee, and so I know that you've already nominated her, for crying out loud. I think it just makes a fit, and we don't have to have like a vote or anything. We can just have a consensus. Is the consensus that we put Casey on the CPAC?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
As
Yes.
a side question, am I on a committee?
I believe you are.
Have I ever had a meeting? It's been a year.
I believe that,
Did she take Lee's spot on S3?
yes.
I don't know.
It's
It's not full, so there's no meetings. That's
Okay.
probably why.
Public Works
Okay.
Accessibility Committee, yes.
It's full now?
So we need to get a Public Works Accessibility Committee meeting set up so that we can elect a chair and vice chair of that committee. So,
Not us. They,
what? No, they would, yes, they would do it, yes. The members of that committee would elect their chair and vice chair, yes. All right, so, yes.
That will, Councilmember Deaton also handle the interviews for CPAC.
I think that would make some sense to have Councilwoman Deaton on those interviews. Is that fair?
Fine by me.
Okay, all right, we'll do that then. All right. All right, anything else for us, City Clerk? All right, Chief Belcher.
As a matter of fact, we have a CPAC meeting Monday, March 8th at 7 o'clock at the Justice Center. So we'll look forward to seeing Councilmember Deaton at that, as well as anybody else who wants to show up.
Absolutely, and you'll just be changing seats. Okay, so, appreciate that. All right, utilities, Gons Garcia.
Nothing, sir.
You got your hands full already with this whole electric thing, so thank you for your staff working so hard to get the, to keep the lights on, especially during that period. You know, we're the only municipality in the Kansas City metro area that did not have rolling blackouts. We're the only ones. And so, great thanks to Gons and the staff to keep the lights on. And thank you again. I know it was a challenge. Parks and Rec, Jason Bruce.
Just wanted to excuse me, let everybody know our modified daddy-daughter weekend. Date night was this past weekend. It was very successful at the movies. Staff did a great job of planning and organizing, and with COVID and everything, it was a real good turnout. So.
All right, great. Mr. Knopick, Development. Yeah, we had our first EDAC meeting last week, which was good, and excited about that. We have a good group of people serving in that group, and we'll have our second meeting on Wednesday, March 10th. We did arrange for our speaker to come in and talk to the group, so we're set for Wednesday, March 10th for that group. That's all I've got tonight. All right, great. Deputy City Administrator.
Nothing from me tonight.
All right, I'm going to move the City Administrator. I did not skip our new Public Works Director for any reason. I want you to introduce our new Public Works Director to the public.
Because he looked hurt when you skipped.
Oh, that's all right. It's his first day. He'll get over it.
So, of course, this is Kellen Headley. He came to us from the Navy, spent 20 years in the Navy. Today is his first day.
Yes.
So, had some good meetings today. I think he will be a very valuable member of our staff.
All right. So, Mr. Headley, drinking out of a fire hose. I'm sure you're used to it, but let's give a little bit of background and what your thoughts are on joining the city.
Well, as Jim said, I'm freshly retired from the United States Navy. As a civil engineer corps officer, did public works for the Navy, so this is a natural progression to a civilian career for me. Just excited to be here and looking forward to learning everything I can and doing what I can to move the city forward.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Headley, and thank you for casting your lot with our merry crew. Yeah, as Knopick said, you'll get used to it. So thanks again. All right.
Just real quick.
Yes.
So Ryan was able to find the agreement with Phillips 66, and it does say that they have access on the northeast entrance. So
Yep.
we will work with KDOT to get that worked
Thank you.
out and clarified.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Thank you. All right. Before we get into council updates for staff, I wanted to make a quick statement. It has to do with there were some discussions that happened in social media as well as within our local newspaper about comments that I made regarding the energy crisis, the electric rates. So I wanted to address those really quickly. It was my intention to try to provide some context and a little bit more information on a thread that was started on the Citizens for the Future of Gardner page. Those comments were my own comments. They were not sanctioned by the city. I wanted to apologize for any concerns that might have been expressed to the city staff about my speaking out of turn. I am going to work as hard as I can going forward to make sure that those comments are made through the appropriate channels through the city administrator and the PIO. Similarly, there was a concern about my issuing a letter of personal recommendation on mayoral letterhead to an individual for character reference. That is also my own doing, and I have done that for other individuals and other entities. I've been asked on many occasions to provide a statement such as that on mayoral letterhead. I did so freely, and I know that that might have caused some angst amongst some people, and so I am willing to, if you would like to have some checks and balances on that, I'd be happy to run such requests through the body if that is their wish. So that is the statement I am making, and I am not going to elaborate, but I wanted to at least get that out there. So if there's a wish for me to run those kind of personal letters through the council, I'll be willing to do it.
I don't think so. It's your choice to do what you want to do, and you can live and die by the pen, as they say. So up to you.
Yeah. I'll always stand by what I write.
Yeah, I'm not really aware of it, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay
Yeah,
with
I
it.
think that.
Oh.
Go ahead, Tori.
I'm okay with it. However, you just said it's your personal opinion, so I kind of think it shouldn't have been on the mayor letterhead, but that's just my opinion.
Well, it's the mayor's letterhead. It's not the city's letterhead. It's not. I'm not speaking for the city. I'm speaking
Okay.
for myself.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of chime in on what Mark said. The pen is mightier than the sword, but I think we have a public informations officer that could help us out in that arena, really in support of the mayor, whether that be Mayor Shute or somebody thereafter, is kind of my position.
All right. All right. That's all I had to say. We'll go on and start with Councilwoman Roberts on the far right.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything really, except for I heard it was somebody's birthday today. I think it was. Is it Jim Pruding's birthday today?
What?
Whose birthday? Oh, I heard it was somebody's birthday.
Oh no, it's Chief Belcher's
Chief
birthday.
Belcher's birthday. Happy birthday! And then I
Yeah.
think it's your birthday tomorrow. Helen's birthday tomorrow. So
Oh.
happy birthday!
Yeah. We won't sing because I don't think we want to destroy people's. Yeah. I'm getting the sign like this from Chief Belcher. Okay, well we'll honor his request not to do it. All right. Well, thank you, Tori. Councilmember Gargorsek.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several items. First, just a couple of questions and comments. Jason, on the swimming pool, are we still looking like we'll be open for the summer of 2021?
I actually reached out to the county, would have been a week ago Friday, seeing if they're going to issue any sort of guidelines, recommendations for other area agencies, and we're hoping to have some of that information back mid-March.
Okay, thanks, Jason. One more for you, Jason, and I'm sure that Todd will support me on this one, but the Daddy-Daughter movie was great. We watched War with Grandpa. Maybe it's something I can look forward to, but the movie, being in a theater, was awesome. Having popcorn was awesome. Obviously, my date was the best, but I really appreciate you and your staff and everything you guys did to make that a special night amongst the last 10 months. I guess we're approaching a year of this COVID epidemic. And then, Mr. Nopick, I appreciated seeing the Economic Advisory Board together again. There was a lot of great new faces with some solid background in community leadership and servant leadership. So I really appreciate you putting that together. The last one I had, Mayor, was for Jim. Jim, we've been working on it, so it's no surprise. But the Aspen Creek neighborhood, in reference to park space and trail space, I think is going in front of the Planning Commission, and perhaps we should let that do its go its course. But just wanted to make a comment about that and make sure that we're understanding what really the community is worried about, the safety of their kids, parks near the community that align with that parks master plan. So if you have any comment, I'd appreciate it.
So staff met yesterday to discuss that, and we're still going through the preliminary plat, and there is a trail that is running in the open space that's required by the Land Development Code, and we're working with the developer to see what they're willing to do
couple other areas, but they are meeting the land development code for open space. The homeowners association already owns the open space between Gardner Road and the west edge of this property. So we just have a couple things to work out with regard to whether they're going to be in the homeowners association and how that plays out, but we'll have that worked out before planning commission.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Randy. Councilman Baldwin. Council Vice President Baldwin.
Thank you, I have nothing.
Councilwoman Deaton.
I have nothing, thank you.
All right, Council President.
Just thanks again to the Parks and Rec staff. That was a great event. You know, in some ways, it was maybe a little bit more fun than the dance stuff, but they're all great, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it's been a whirlwind month. Appreciate, again, we had a significant crisis. It's been played out throughout the entire Midwest, as others have already stated on this call or on this council meeting. It's affecting a lot of people, and the situation is still volatile. So I do know that there was a push on the part of the governor's office to try to get a financial state of emergency declared for Kansas. I know there's a disaster declaration. I think they're looking for a financial state of emergency as well to try to bring federal assistance to bear for some of the municipalities that are dependent on self-generation of energy. So hopefully we'll be seeing something like that coming down the pike. But our staff has really been pulling heavy duty, trying to keep things running like we expect them to here. And now we'll have a Public Works move to get 56 Highway running and going, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of dirt being moved there. So we're moving forward. Continuous improvement, right, Councilman?
Yes, Mayor. And if I may have the floor when you're done.
Oh, okay. What did you want to add?
Yeah, I apologize. I've got everything written down, but unfortunately the last item was on the back of the page. So my apologies for my disorganization. I just wanted to kind of take the temperature of the council, and I apologize for not being there tonight. But on December 16th of 2019, council passed resolution 2045, essentially moving the paper of record from the Gardner newspaper to the legal record. And I'd like to understand kind of the temperature of the council to maybe reverse that resolution moving forward.
All right, I'll open up the floor for.
Well, I would be interested in discussing it.
Okay.
Councilman gargorsek, is there new information that changes what we looked at in 2019?
Yeah, I think there is, Councilman Baldwin, and not just including the funding mechanism for that, but really, for me, it boils down to electeds, both us as well as those before us, have always preached that we shop locally, buy locally, and I just don't know that the city is necessarily doing that when it comes to the newspaper of record.
Anyone else? Oh,
I don't have anything new to add. It's just,
okay. Council President? Everybody can weigh in here. I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very tough decision. But the cost difference was so large. That's, for me, I just couldn't justify the expense, the difference in the expense. And I don't know if we have, what kind of numbers we have, but it was a pretty dramatic difference. And I mean, as much as I want to support, I mean, if the numbers were close, it would be no question. It was just such a huge difference, I couldn't justify it.
well, I go back to, we represent the people. I had way more comments to keep it as the paper of record, and everybody knew that it was gonna be more money, but more, I could probably go back to my numbers, but I had more people contact me to keep it than I did to to go to the public record. So that's why I'm still for it, because that's what the feedback I got from the citizens. And they knew it was gonna be more money.
Councilwoman Deaton, do you have any thoughts on this?
Obviously, I wasn't on the council at the time of that discussion, but, you know, financially, like Todd said, it was a huge difference, and I definitely support the buying local, staying local, and I believe there's a policy in place to keep things local within a certain cost percentage. So, you know, if something has changed financially, I'm super happy to look at it and have the discussion about it. But as long as we're adhering to the policies that have been placed, then, I mean, that's kind of where I stand on it.
All right, well, sounds like we don't have consensus on this. So, I mean, we can, if there's a willingness on the part of the paper to work with us on pricing, maybe we can look at it. I think that's what I'm hearing from the folks at the dais. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I also think we need to take a look at an alternative funding mechanism if the will of the body sees it this way. Take a different approach to the funding mechanism that would support shopping locally. But I would just encourage not necessarily a work session, but some current discussion about it. And I'd be more than willing to pull some stuff together, and obviously work with our city administrator as a representative of the community, non-elected, since he's got the binding authority. But I just think it's time to kind of take a new look at this, really just in the spirit of buy local.
Okay.
I actually had somebody, the funeral home reach out to me, and it's a kind of a trickle-down effect, because the people that go there are using their services, they post obituaries, and the obituaries are increasingly expensive in other newspapers, and most of the local people that go through this funeral home do use the Gardner newspaper to post their obituaries in memory of their family members. And they won't, if the newspaper goes away, then it's going to be harder for them to publish the obituaries and have that resource. So I mean, there's yes, the Gardner newspaper, but it also affects other businesses in Gardner, long-term businesses, citizens of Gardner, et cetera.
Okay. I mean, yes, Mark?
Councilman Gargorsek, I think based off what I've heard, this might be something that would be good to bring up at your EDAC meeting.
I plan to do it, yes, sir. Now that we've got a full body on the economic development board, and letting everybody kind of get settled and get to know each other, I plan to bring that to the agenda and then bubble it up.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. I don't have anything else. Is there anyone else who wishes to weigh in? Okay. I will entertain then a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Winters, second Baldwin, we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, any abstentions? We are adjourned.